Hello and welcome to this video where we'll come into error handling in Python. So we have several errors in Python, different error types. So we have syntax errors, we have exception errors, which are runtime errors, and then we have logical errors, which are errors that basically the code doesn't crash, but it just doesn't give you what you want it to give you. So it doesn't do as you expect it. And these errors are quite tricky to handle, but we'll go into more about how to handle this. And then we'll go into something called try except so that we'll handle the errors gracefully in Python. Okay, so let's move on to Studio Code. So here I am in Visual Studio Code, and as you've seen, it's an empty folder, and you should definitely work with a GitHub repository and version control your code. So I'll start up creating a virtual environment, but if you already have it, just activate it. So uvvnv, and then source.then bin activated, and in Windows it's scripts instead of bin. So now when I've activated it, I just need to install one thing. uv pip install ipykernel like this, and now I've installed everything I need, and I will clean the terminal and I will create a file now. So touch error handling.ipynb like this, and then click on this one, close down the terminal, and create a markdown error handling. And change this to Python environment, virtual environment. Okay, so let's create a syntax error. So 5 is less than 7. You know that this is true. And then I will do print 5 is less than 7, like this. Actually, I don't want this, like here. And then I write it. As you can see, this is something called error lens. It already detects that there's a colon missing. So if I run this one, there's a syntax error here, expected colon. So this is a syntax error that happens before we run it, because the program doesn't, and the Python parser doesn't understand what this code does when it expects a colon, right? So without a colon, it doesn't understand it. So it gives a syntax error because we don't write it in the way that the Python parser expects. For example, we could do something like we can go into exception errors. Let's see, exception errors or runtime errors. So this happens during the runtime. So numbers equals to list of range 10, for example. And then we do numbers of 11. And I run this one. And you can see this happens first. The error happens first when I run it. And then we have an index error. So this is a runtime error. So it tries to find number 11, but it doesn't have index 11, right? It has index to up to 10 because we have only 10 values here. So this is an index error and it's a runtime error. So let's continue with a logical error here. And for a logical error, let's import NumPy as NP. And here, let's see, area sample, we create a function. Actually, I'll call it a lambda function, radius np dot pi times radius, like this. And then I print area circle of 5. And I run this one. Okay, no module name NumPy. Let's install that one. So source.then bin activate uv pip install NumPy. And then I run this one here. And as you can see here, it runs. However, is this the area of the circle? No, it's not the area of a circle, because the area of a circle is pi times radius squared, right? So this is a logical error. And as you can see, it runs. And these errors are a little bit more difficult to find. So we will later in this course go into testing using PyTest. And with testing, it's easier to make sure that you actually get the output that you expect. And it will decrease the chance of getting logical errors. So testing we'll go into later, but now we'll go into try except to handle other types of errors. So you have a try block for testing out dangerous code. For example, when a code can generate an error, and then you have an except block that handles the error instead of crashing the program. And then there's also a finally block which will always run no matter if it crashes or not. For example, the finally block is used in database connections when you want to close the database connection, when you want to close the file connection. So then you use try except finally, or you can use something called a context manager, which we'll use in the next lecture in file handling. Okay, so let's try out except. So age equals to input, enter your age. So if age, let's see, not if, try age equals float age. And if not 0 age, say 125, and then we raise a value error that age must be between 0 and 125. And then we print your age years old. And then except value error as E. And we print out, invalid input E. Actually, this is new that I've got in GitHub Copilot. It disturbs a little bit when I'm teaching, I think. I might turn it off, or it actually gives a lot of help for me. However, when you're learning this, I actually recommend you not to use GitHub Copilot, as it's good to train up your muscle memory to type out all the code. Because when typing it out, you will learn it by heart, and then you can code much better. Okay, so what does this do? So if I run this one, enter your age. I enter 5, for example, and it says invalid input could not convert string to float 5. Because here, you can see here's a dangerous code. We try to convert the code, and when it fails, it will skip this part here, and it will jump into the except part, and this except, it will pick up all the value errors as E. Okay, so then this is a value error, and it says could not convert string to float 5. And you can get different types of error depending on what type of errors that you get. So then when you can accept just error, and it will accept all of them. However, it's good to choose more specifically so that you know what you're catching. And here, when this passes, say it's okay, then we go through this check here, and here is to check for logical error, because we could actually get, for example, if I put in -5, that would be okay to make it into float, but that is not a valid age, right? So in that case, if we get, for example, -5, then we will raise a value error, which says that age must be between 0 and 125, which we have chosen here. Or actually 124, because 125 is not included. Okay. And then we print it out if that's okay. So if we run this one, 54. Yes, that is okay. Your age is 54 years old. If I run it again, -6. Invalid age. Age must be between 0 and 124. Okay, good. So we have raised a value error. When that gets raised, the except part will take care of it, and then it will print this out. So that is how it works. Okay, So how about if we want to get let the user enter several times? So I'll show you here in a second the cell here. So just wrap this around with a while, true, and then I will add this in. So this will ask me again forever. However, when this has passed, when the print statement is done, which means that yes, it's been okay, then I just break out of this loop. So I break out of this if nothing went wrong. Otherwise, it will go into the accept, and when it has accepted, accept a value error, and then it will go back into the loop and reiterate, right? So if it passes here, everything is fine, then we break out of the loop and we're done. So I run this one, enter your age, 60. Oh, missed. And you see, they ask again, -5. Oh, ask again, 25. Your age is 25.0 years old. Okay, great. So now we have made a simple program which prompts the user several times in case the user types in something that is wrong. What could be improved here is that you could, for example, here age must be between 0 and 125, and you can also type in you have entered this value. So to guide the user more, that is better. Okay, so now you've seen me working with error handling and working with different types of errors, starting with syntax error, going into runtime errors, and then logical errors, and then finally we went through try and accept in order to handle errors gracefully, and created a simple program for prompting the user to enter an age. Okay, so this is quite interesting, and I hope that you've learned a lot, and make sure to commit, push your code into GitHub, and then see you in the next lecture. Bye.